Good afternoon, Jim and Chris. Let's take a look at last week's top most reports from our internet weather, ending yesterday at March 15, 2021. Here we have the top 10 ports. Most often than, Jim, you remember we have been seeing since years and weeks with the same number of set of ports moving up and down. The first one is the Telnet, obviously 23 is for Telnet, 445 is SMB, at 4 is SSH port at 22, followed by 443 SSL, 1433 is for MS SQL, at 8, 3389, which is for remote desktop protocol, followed by 53 UDP, and just peeking into top 10, 81 TCP. But I would like to discuss a little bit about the port at number 7 position this week, which is 26 TCP. What is 26 TCP? What is known on this port? Typically, as for the INO registered port, it seems to be RSFTP, which is like a simple FTP-like protocol. But in the past, it's also associated with some of the Alta Vista firewalls. Though these two are the most common and recognized ports, but I think most frequently this port is used as alternate SMTP port. We all know SMTP uses port 25 TCP, like we see with HTTP. Typically, alternate ports starts with 81 TCP, etc., etc. And I think in this scenario, 26 is next to 25 TCP, and it's most often used as alternate SMTP port. Okay, that being said, what we have in store from our common backbone, some information from our honeypot. Some of the interesting observations is I tried to look for the specific port in Shodan as well as binary edges, but I just listing from the Shodan here. As for them, most often times the top one seems to be Exim SMTPD, which is another SMTP daemon, followed by Postfix. But as you can see in this table, it's by far the largest, about 409,000 hits, followed by Postfix, which is at 8,000, then OpenSSH, and so forth, so far. Taking that information, I tried to pivot to see in our honeypot we could be able to get some information in line with Shodan or maybe something interesting we can find out from there. By looking at the past 30 days, as you can see, the bulk, maybe majority, about 39% is HTTP-related traffic, followed by SMTP, which kind of expects it to alternate SMTP port usage. But by looking at, I think pretty much most often times it's SMTP and HTTP. In HTTP, most often it's being done by some internet scanners. In this scenario, like a census scanner is seen so many times, and typical, some of them are SSS-related brute force kind of scanning. Then we pivoted into our common backbone telemetry data. This data here, I'm showing the past 90 days worth of data. Again, on x-axis is the timeline, and y is the amount of what are the time units we're trying to measure. In this case, probes, in terms of how much we are seeing in an hour. Like you can see, I think at just before Christmas time, there was a little spike at around December 20th. Afterwards, during the Christmas time, around 27th, there was a huge activity, almost peaking up to somewhere close to 1 gigabits per hour or something like that. But afterwards, there's a constantly low period for a long time, I think almost for 5 to 6 weeks. And then a little bit of activity picked up around, I think, second week of February, and then continued for some time, then again tapered off again. Actually, it's picking up since a few days. So that said, okay, let's see how many scanners we are seeing on this specific port from our data. In this scenario, similar to the earlier graph, but in this scenario, the y-axis would be the unique scanners we are seeing with respect to the specific port on any given hour. Again, when you compare back to the previous graph, we are not seeing the corresponding increase in the basically scanners happening at the December 20th time frame. That means there might be some activity happening and just dropped. But starting from maybe 1207, constantly looking after, I think there are lots of new scanner IPs being seen. I think there's definitely some sort of recruiting happening, and most likely related to botnets trying to look for the specific port. Why is that sudden interest? Okay, then I took one of the reports generated for one of the specific hours, see what we are seeing from our data to correlate any correlation in the geographical IP map. In this scenario, there are some IPs in North America, South America, and I think Indian subcontinent region, Asia Pac, some parts of Asia Pac. So distribution is there, but even though it is not there, I think at this point, most often time, based on the honeypot, by looking at the data we have, seems to be alternate SMTP, followed by some sort of HTTP/brute forcing type of activity.
Actually, I have some more insight into this. If I had known you were doing this, if I had known you were doing this, I would have shared some of this. I did a couple of handlers' diaries for the Internet Storm Center a couple weeks ago on this.
Oh, really? Okay.
There was a spike. You didn't go back far enough, but there was actually a much larger spike on port 26 a year ago, December.
Yes.
In December 2019. That.
Oh, 2019. Okay.
Yeah, there was actually a spike then, and that one was looking for servers that were running XIM, the mail transport agent XIM.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
But this particular batch, I have a couple of honeypots running, and I looked at what was actually showing up on the honeypots. This is what I captured on my honeypots, and what you can see there is that they're attempting to get a shell enable system busy box. So they're looking for a particular set of I'm suspecting IoT devices that are vulnerable, that are running a management on port 26 of some sort, but some sort of Linux box that they're trying to launch BusyBox with this Satori argument to it. So I don't know that it's necessarily part of the old Satori botnet, because I believe they arrested the guys who were running the old botnet last year, but they may be reusing some of their code for something. But these particular probes all started up the middle of last month, when you showed the beginning of that spike. Okay.
Yeah. While showing that Satori one, we know Satori is notorious and infamous for using 2322 to gain access. And probably that's where I saw a little bit of SSL brute forcing, though it's not as high. But I really appreciate, Jim, you showing that your data, honeypot data, that gives much more insight. Thank you. And even though, just before going to the next one, we have a 53 UDP on the top. Like, for example, let me quickly go there. For example, if you look at the number 9 ranking, 53 UDP is 16 places. But when I try to look into it, there's not much deviation, maybe probably jump different places, so many highs, because it's relatively low volume compared to other ports, probably because of little deviation and upwards, it kind of creeped into the top. But I haven't found any interesting observations why it's been happening. In the past 30 to 60 days, actually, the activity seems to be relatively same, at the same levels. That's one of the reasons I did not include. These are the next set of probes I just included to see what we were observing. Like you're saying 123, 637, 555, 21, 80, 80. By looking at some of the ports, we can correlate with the GH-trap botnet. There some of these ports are on the port list for GH-trap. So which are, again, part of various IoT partners. That thought maybe this gives us a little insights how the changes are happening. In this time, 555 drops few places, but I think the changes are expected based on the volumes. Next up is we're diverting into the more sources probing. Again, this is we're listing at the top 10 source probes happening on which ports. The first one starts with the SMB port, followed by 23, Telnet, 22 SSH, 8088, 8728, 27032. Those are the two ones I would like to highlight a little bit. But even though 8728, 8291 go in hand, I would like to show why they go in hand, why it is important also. In the last time, on the internet weather, I went a little bit deeper with what's happening on these two ports. But very quickly, we can summarize 8728, 8291. They both related to MikroTik. Most oftentimes in the sense, maybe 80 to 90% of the times, when you see some activity happening on 8728, invariably there will be some activity, similar kind of activity happens on 8291 based on our telemetry data. Why is that? I think they both are management-related ports used by MikroTik devices. And this is from, again, little snapshot and little insight from our honeypot data. I just wanted to bring it to like a quick glance that it's still happening and these two ports are still on high end up by the botnets to be scanned. 2703T UDP, it's associated with the Steam-related ports, the Steam, not Steam, wall-related gaming ports. Though there is an increase, I haven't found much deviation from since the last week or so. Our internet weather basically talked about it. So other than that, I think with that one, it comes to the wrap for today's internet weather. I would like to get some thoughts on any of the ports which I did not mention. Maybe you guys have some insights.
Most sources probing that top 10 is almost 3/4 of all the probes we saw. So, that 445, is always huge, almost a quarter of the probes we're seeing. And they just don't seem to change all that much. They shuffle around a little bit. Some shuffle just out of the top 10 and a new one pops up and then they switch back. But, those 10 ports or, 11, 12, 13 ports are the vast majority of the sources doing the probing. And so that's, we got a couple of really large botnets out there that are continually scanning for these same sets of ports, same vulnerable systems. And apparently there must be enough of them still directly internet connected. There must be some gain to it or they'd stop doing it.
Yeah, I agree with you, Jim. I think most oftentimes, at least more than 50% of the ports we always see constantly week after week. Like you said, there's some odd-numbered ports. For example, maybe 27032 UDP, they come in at certain points and they go away. But the rest of the ports, they constantly shuffle on the top list, maybe exchanging few positions here and there, depending upon how active that specific threat at the time.
Yeah, but even 27032 UDP, that only jumped up from 11. It was just off the chart last week, so...